Lance Corporal Johnathan Weygandt speaks out at last after many years of silence, spurred on by David Grush's coming out to the public. Johnathan Weygandt, who very famously encountered a UFO crash in Peru in the 90s, and then had a terrifying experience with the Men in Black, where he learned some really amazing things during this whole encounter, not just about UFOs, but also about how the UFO control group operates. Because of his encounter, to my mind, the Johnathan Weygandt story has become one of the most important UFO encounters ever in the history of UFO encounters, especially because of what it tells us about the UFO control group. So let's talk about his recent interview. He went on Martin Willis's podcast UFO, and sat down for a great interview. Unfortunately, he didn't really want to rehash a lot of the things that we would like for him to have rehashed and expounded upon, but he did answer some questions and go into a little more detail and give us a little different perspective on some of this. So let's talk about it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Oh, and if you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, please consider becoming a channel member. See the first link in the description below. Okay, let's just get right to it. I really salute UFO Podcast for having Johnathan on, and I salute Johnathan for going on. And of course, I refer you to the full interview, and I will link to it below. I'm just going to go over a few highlights of some of the things that I consider the most important. Okay, just to give a really quick rundown, Johnathan Weygandt is a Marine. This is in the 90s. He's in Peru. There's a crash. He doesn't know it's a UFO. And he and some other Marines are sent out to secure the crash site. Of course, they didn't know it was a UFO. And when this was found out, the people that were actually supposed to secure a UFO crash were sent in, or more likely, the people that shot it down. Listen to what he has to say about the actual craft and how he believes it was shot down.
So when you were like, what I've heard you say, you were like one part of the point, or the people that go
yeah
ahead.
I was up in front of the section, right?
Yeah. And the landscape, you could see that it was a crash.
Oh, it crashed. It burned itself through the jungle. I can't I didn't get out and measure it, right? So I have no idea of dimensions, right? But it crashed through, and it had buried itself into the cliff there. And I could see the rear of the craft, whatever it is, and it looked like that it had been hit by a surface-to-air missile, a blast fragmentation that was similar to the I figured out later, because I went and looked at it. I could remember it, and I went and I did research into Hawk. So anyway, when I was at school at the school, Stinger Schoolhouse at Fort Bliss, Texas, I was with Hoggers, Marine Corps Hawk Sam operators. But I wasn't privy to anything that they were doing. But I went back and started looking at videotapes, trying to find books that had like photographic evidence of the blast fragmentation from the rounds.
Yeah. And
from the Hawk, the MIM-23 rounds, when it exploded, not the actual kinetic hit, when it physically hits the aircraft, the blast, like if it's within a certain amount of distance, it explodes, right? It blasts. And so I saw that. So, and that's the way I figured out later, but this is just speculation on my part.
Was the thing possibly upside down?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I wouldn't know. How would I know if it's upside down? I don't even know what it was.
Yeah. But the damage appeared to be more on the underside, like it could have
been. Yes, sir. Well, what I would consider the aft part of the aircraft or the spacecraft, whatever you want. I don't know what it is, but it was on the aft portion of the craft.
Yeah. Okay. And
it had holes in it. It was blasted, right? It was hit. And it was from fragmentations. You could tell. You could tell an aircraft too from the outside.
Yeah. And
but most of these missiles, when they hit like our craft, or if they hit, Russian, whoever else, they usually blow them apart, right? They usually disintegrate them, typically. I would say, because a strike like that would, apart from maybe a Sequoia Su-25 or A-10 or any of these other type of aircraft that are designed to to be at the front, to fly in real close, designed to with small arms or small caliber, to be able to survive that type of damage.
Now,
but again, I'm not an aircraft engineer. I don't design survivability in aircraft. So these factors, you should do everyone else can do their own research. So
I talk a lot on this channel about the war that seems to be going on between the UFO control group and at least one subset of the aliens or non-humans that are visiting this planet. The UFO control group seems to be working with at least one of these groups, probably more, and they are shooting at one, probably more of these groups as well. It's so weird because they seem to be able to use mundane weapons like missiles, and in one case that I've heard about, even bullets, to bring these craft down. They also have more exotic weapons like energy devices, for example, those used in the Magis Brazil UFO shootdown. This seems to have been another UFO shootdown carried out by the UFO control group, and but before they could secure the site, some upstart Marines got there first, and because of the Lance Corporal had actually gone and further and encountered one of these beings, they actually arrested him. Let's see what he has to say about the being and also the craft itself.
Somehow that there was at least two creatures that were inside of the, whatever you want to call it, the vehicle. And I guess I don't know, it could have been the damage from the crash, or it was the damage from the blast fragmentation warhead, but it was leaking, right? I would assume was the cockpit, and it was leaking and it was coming out. I mean, it was all over the area. It got on my, my fatigues. I was in it. And so that's what happened there. Yeah, there was like I said, I think there were, like I said, I thought there were two creatures inside of the vehicle, or what I call creatures. I don't know what they are.
And but what about? Did you see any? You saw some part of?
Yeah, one of the creatures was his arm and hand was hanging out. Hanging out.
Did it come out? Was it hanging out when you walked up to it, or was it?
Yeah, he was hanging out, probably dying. I don't know about the other pilot. I don't know what they were, to be honest with you, but I guess you could call them aliens or whatever. I guess that would be.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were trying to project their thoughts into my mind, but like I said, I mean, from the traumatic experience, I just don't know at this point.
Yeah, but when you think back on it,
I try not to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
It wasn't something that we would have produced in a factory, that's machined and all of this. It was just bizarre. I mean, I've done research, looking at films, trying to find something that would look even similar. And there's only one similar movie that I've seen. What's actually I think it's a Disney movie.
Interesting, right? Okay, and here's what he said about the men in black that showed up to arrest him.
When did the other people come into play? Did you climb back up on the ridge? Were you going back?
Yeah, we were, and I don't know who these fellows were. If this is speculation on my part, but I think they were Department of Energy personnel that were there, privatized. Right. I would say most of this. This is just speculation on my part, but how would they control this? Privatized labs. They would privatize it, so then there would be no oversight by the government at all.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Private labs.
And these guys that showed up, they kind of aggressively took over the entire situation.
Right.
And they kind of handled you pretty rough.
Oh yeah.
Can you explain how you were just grabbed by these guys, and did they just they threatened you, like you didn't see this? I mean,
well, like I said in the video, they put me on the CH-46 and flew me out of there. I don't know where I went. Like I said, I don't know any more now than I knew then. Matter of fact, I can say definitively I know less today than I knew then.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that have not watched your video, have not listened to it or watched it. So that's another reason.
I'm just not going to repeat myself. Like I said,
the Department of Energy. Isn't that interesting? When I listened to the interview, the original interview, I came away with the impression it was the Air Force that had arrested him. But now he is clarifying, or maybe I misunderstood in that original interview, and saying he believes it was the Department of Energy. Of course, they have their tentacles all over this business. And Jacques Vallée believes that in order to be read into the UFO program, you have to be read into the nuclear secrets, which of course are governed by the Department of Energy. And you have to go through them to get these secrets. That's what Jacques Vallée believes. And I don't know if that's true or not, but they are certainly a huge player in all of this. Unfortunately, Johnathan Weygandt didn't want to rehash what he had said in the original interview, where he describes being taken back to the evil layer of the control group, where he saw it was a multinational affair. There were even people from China there. This was in the 90s. And so really, really interesting multinational effort led by the U.S., and this is, who composes the UFO control group. It is a global initiative, and this was, I guess, their local base where they were retrieving or shooting at UFOs. And shooting at them and then retrieving them and then doing God knows what, right? He also saw some stuff there that made him think that the UFO control group was funding themselves in part through the black market, which of course is something that the Stephen Greer witness Michael Herrera corroborates, or at least according to his own story, what he witnessed in Indonesia. It seems like that seems to be the case. So is there anything new in this interview? Anything that Johnathan Weygandt didn't say before? Well, he was really reluctant to go into any details. He didn't want to rehash anything from the original interview. He doesn't like talking about this. He's not a UFO guy. He says just giving this interview will give him nightmares. So I really salute him for being brave enough to come out and talk about this. And he is brave because the things that he talks about could really rouse the ire of the UFO control group. And he's already been on the receiving end of their ire, and I know he doesn't want to be again. So I think it takes a lot of guts for him to come forward. But he does mention that he has had some health effects since this UFO encounter. He doesn't go into any details about what those are, unfortunately. Of course, he is not the only one that has experienced health effects from encountering a UFO or a being. That is all too common, unfortunately. I don't know why some people have these health effects and some don't. Perhaps it has to do with whether it's a planned encounter or not. Like in the Virginia case, Virginia, Brazil, where a human was trying to apprehend the being and touched him, and the human ultimately died as a result of that. Many, many people have had health effects, some of them extremely severe, from encountering these beings. Even some of these planned encounters seem to have had dire health effects. Chris Bledsoe, for example, when he encountered the lady, she cured him of Crohn's disease, changing his life and improving it greatly. But at the same time, he was stricken with rheumatoid arthritis. We don't know what the Lance Corporal's medical problems are, and he doesn't want to talk about that, and I respect that. But again, I do hope that he gets help for them. If the UFO control group wasn't so busy terrorizing people and browbeating them into silence, I mean, they've got some high tech. They deal with this stuff all the time. They may have ways to counter this sort of negative effect. So why couldn't they have helped the Lance Corporal instead of terrorizing him? Anyway, to wrap up this video, from Lance Corporal Johnathan Weygandt's story, we learned that the UFO control group is a multinational corporation or conglomeration. They have at least one base in Peru. They seem to have multiple bases, or at least they're shooting craft in multiple countries, probably all over the world, that they may fund themselves through the black market, which is very interesting. We know from David Grush that they also seem to fund themselves through misappropriation of funds through Congress. We have no idea what they did with these beings or with this craft. Did either of those two beings survive? Were there more? What race were they? What were they doing? Why did they need to be shot at? Are they the bad guys? Was the control group right to shoot at them? Or were they the good guys because the control group was the bad guys? Or is it just a whole bunch of gray and we just don't know what's going on? Well, I don't know what's going on. If you guys have a clue, let me know. All in all, a terrific interview, and thank you so much, UFO Podcast, for getting Lance Corporal Johnathan Weygandt to come out and break his silence and connect with the public and give them new information and give them a fresh look on this very important case. And if you've enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, please consider becoming a channel member. See the first link in the description below. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel to check out, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.